ahead and call the meeting to order. We're anticipating one of our members to join us a little late, and that'll establish the full in-person quorum to take any positions or
Recording in progress.
anything like that, but I just want to tell you we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and we have before us our agenda. And is there any changes to the agenda, or would anybody like to make a motion to approve the agenda? Sheila?
Can we move number 5 up before Chief Scott's review? I actually think that people are here. And though I didn't send in questions like I usually do, I'm not as prepared because I had to help my cat die over the last few weeks.
I'm so sorry about that, Sheila. It's tough.
Yeah, so I knew this was coming up, and I would like for that to go before the chief update. I also want to know a roll call of people who said that we couldn't have a quorum last month. We've always just come, and then it was voted. Why we didn't have it, because it was said that we didn't have a quorum.
You've got to have a quorum in the room under state law.
Yeah, I want to know who, did we have 5
Oh, last
people
month?
call
Last
out?
month?
Yeah.
Oh, there wasn't enough. I was not going to be available. We had too many people say they couldn't be available, and as it turns out, even if we had called the meeting, it would have been canceled for the hurricane.
So you got 4 or 5 people who emailed you?
Yeah, so
Right.
we because I knew
That's the
I
first time
couldn't.
it happened.
It was very unusual, because that usually is very, very rare. Oh, there's Colleen. It's very rare, but I knew that I couldn't make it, and anyway, so I asked Deborah to check and see, and then we ended up with not enough, and then more importantly, it would have been, as it all turns out, the thing I actually had the conflict with got rescheduled anyway, so, because of the hurricane, so it would have been moved, even if we had had the meeting, it would have been canceled.
Can I just say that because 2 community meetings that were supposed to September and October to talk about the Bradley case?
Yeah, that part's
It
separate.
seemed suspicious
Get that.
that this meeting, and so I got a lot of contact. That's why I felt like I had to
Fair
ask.
enough. Fair enough. It was a coincidence more than anything, and I was just telling Deborah my whole tale of where I was supposed to be and where it didn't end up happening, and I would have been stuck, so I'm glad I didn't get to go. But anyway, I didn't foresee a hurricane, I assure you.
Right.
If I had. But yeah, that's pretty unusual, but I'd rather have her check and make sure that we're gonna have a quorum than get exactly one shy of a quorum and then everybody's wasted their time. So we will meet tonight, and we're gonna talk about the November meeting. And so you would like to move the closed IA cases. So we have a number of closed IA cases. Do you want to do?
There's
what's
3
your-
that I'm particularly interested in. I'm sorry, I usually send a lot of questions, but I just didn't have time because of my...
Okay, so if the agenda is modified to switch around 4 and 5, I think that'll take care of Sheila's concerns. Right, so if let's assume that's a motion. Is there a second to?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we've got minutes, and man, August 24th seems really long ago, I'm not gonna lie. I know they're in here.
I moved to approve.
Okay, there they are. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the minutes being as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we've adjusted the agenda to go through the closed IA cases. Sorry. And so I will ask Chief Inspector Koenig to come forward. And we actually have a whole bunch of them. So I'm looking at what Colleen's got next to him. Okay. I was just checking out your situation.
Oh.
I mean, I can say the ones I'm most
Well, did you?
interested
Okay,
in.
why don't we do that?
That's a kicker
Why don't we
off the
start
stool.
there, Sheila?
And other people.
Because some of these, yeah, it's kind of hard to decide. I don't know which ones you're interested in. So,
43, 41, and 4, because I think 4 relates to 43.
Okay. Let me get
Did you
to
say the
those.
numbers again? I'm sorry.
4, 43,
And 41.
and 41. I mean, there's others I took notes of, but we'll see how, I actually would request that some of this be read for the, I know it's long, but there's,
Well, may I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
And let's talk about the other ones before we get to 43, just to kind of knock them out, because that one's probably going to be a little longer conversation. And we can start with some of the other ones. And so you said 40, I have two that are number 41s, but they're 2 different years.
Yeah, I needed to know which 41. Is it 22-41 or 21?
Yeah. and it's 2204, 2243, 22, those are the main, 2241. I mean, the reason that I want some of this read is because it's very contradictory. We know that, okay, go ahead. I won't make my comments.
No, that's okay. So 41 and 43 are definitely, attached. So we probably talk about 4 first, 22-4, if that's okay, Ms.
Okay.
Sheila?
Okay.
Because the other two are related to the canine incident.
And so is 4, just a prior one where they finally made a complaint.
Yes,
So I
ma'am.
don't know if I should just say my questions about it, or, I mean,
How
it's
about-
another use of the canine on, when they're
Right.
in.
How about we let Chief Inspector Koenig talk and go through, and then we'll ask questions from there. So go ahead, Chief Inspector Koenig.
So 22-4 is actually a incident that happened July 24th, 2018. The complainant was Deveron Stacy. And in there, the complaint basically states that Officer Johnson tried to unlawfully detain him as he was walking. Stacy states he was in compliance with Officer Johnson. When he tried to grab his gun, he was in fear for his life. And that he was illegally detained and falsely arrested. And this was an incident that actually occurred at 1130 Southwest 16th Avenue. This is where a robbery was called in. Let me look. I mean, I can go through the whole case, or Sheila, if you'd like to ask questions, I can answer those questions for you.
No, it sounds like the chair would like for you to go through what you always do a good job of.
Yeah, go ahead and summarize,
synopsis.
and then
Sure.
we'll open up for questions.
Sure, I apologize. Okay, so in this one, the suspect had implied a firearm by threatening to shoot a victim in the face, and multiple GPD units responded to that location. So we had an armed incident involving that, and Officer Johnson observed an individual matching that description. This happened to be Mr. Stacy. He got out of the car. He tried to ask Mr. Stacy to stop. He did not, and he fled. The fleeing led to him running. We had our canine officer in the area. The canine officer ended up finding him and locating him around the backside of a dumpster. And Mr. Stacy was apprehended and taken into custody. And Mr. Stacy complained. So this is almost 4 years ago. And understanding that 2 of the officers no longer work for us at the department, so we couldn't actually interview those gentlemen. And the complaint was unfounded, if I remember this one, sorry. Yes.
Do you want to, shall we move on and then come back and you can talk more generally, Sheila, or do you want to ask questions about this one?
Well, to me, it's the tone. For one thing, there was a lot of conflicting testimony from the officers. I'm concerned he matched the description of the robbery suspect later in the, again, I'm not as prepared as I usually am. Later, part of that is that he had a hoodie and you all even put in the humidity index, as if people who, and I get that they thought it was him. I'm concerned about the language about taking down. We did a takedown, Also, there was conflicting testimony about, if I can recollect, about whether he was hurt on his shoulder and his leg, which he said. The dog was kept on him, biting until they could get his hands, which when you have that many officers, is it really necessary? I mean, I'm hoping that at some point with community support we can get rid of the canine unit, because though it's been told, like in the press conference, it's a lower bite rate, I think 25%, like here is another person who got bit, is really high. And, why did the dog have to stay biting him when he was on the ground and there was officers all around him? So I just don't like the language, taking him down and resisting arrest. And then if I remember correctly, he was only charged with the state attorney Cervone. He adjudicated guilty because of cannabis less than 20 grams, which we've been told is not a primary arrest offense. And I know he's arrested because he looked like someone and he resisted. And again, there's still resisting an officer without violence, which seems to be tacked onto everything, and use of possession of drug paraphernalia. And then on this same page, it says all the reasons to use the canine unit.
I didn't know what page you're looking at, Ms. Sheila.
Page 6.
It's so, I guess, I have page 5 and page 7.
Right? Except on my printer,
Oh,
Yeah.
we're back to the,
this is one I printed
the
out.
copier.
This is the,
Reason to use a dog.
okay, yes ma'am.
And
Our policy, yes ma'am.
right, and so someone says he thinks he was threatening him about he had a gun. The officer says things like there was a bulge, and that because they think he could have a gun because someone said he felt threatened, the man implied he had a gun, then the dogs come. It seems like every time the dogs are sent out, after the fact, there's a reason.
So let me ask on this page, you had a question about this part of about Mr. Cervone and what his, because you have a circle. I mean, what's the, I guess on this page, because
We were missing a page.
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
you got it electronically, Sheila, so you're smart enough to print it out, but
yeah,
anyway, the one here is missing a page.
we're missing page.
That's okay.
135,
Well, Cervone ended up, y'all were not able to sustain that he was the suspect. The person who says that he robbed him, it was 85%. And so I know that there's plea bargaining, but that's not even what he was charged with. It was cannabis.
Right, so I wouldn't know without asking Mr. Cervone or having them look at the case file, what happened in that case and what they did with the charges. So that would be a question that the state attorney's office would have to answer.
Well, I'm asking you.
I don't have that answer, I can't provide
Well,
that.
obviously, he didn't feel there was proof that he was the person who did what happened. Or he would, because he's not liberal, have charged him with something.
Well, I can't deduce what the state attorney's office thinks or thought on the case, because I just don't know. We're not involved in that. We submit the charges that, we find that this gentleman had, and then it's up to the state attorney as being the lead charging agency in our circuit to determine what charges are done and what pleas are done, and I can't control what happens there. So, and it doesn't negate the fact that there was probable cause, but it also, I wish I don't have an answer for you on what happened with Mr. Serpone. And I would be remiss to ask. I mean, we could ask to see if there were any notes, or we could determine what
I would like
happened
to
at a
say,
later,
well,
a follow-up.
It's what always happens. The officers are always following procedure. And can I just say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
At 41, where none of the officers turned in their cell phone photos, there's excuses made for that. I know a lot of them were disciplined. So they were too afraid. They said in their testimony they were fearful of showing that they had the photo. Yet over and over in these cases, the officers say, well, you shouldn't have run, like in the Terrell Bradley case. Shows that you're guilty. They were too afraid to come out and show the photo, all these officers, yet when someone runs like this man did in case 4, they immediately resisting arrest, bring the dogs, you know. They're afraid.
This is a violent felony case, and that's, you know, that is why it's in
Now
the
I'm talking about
manual.
4. Officers are afraid
Yep.
to even show
So in 4,
photos.
4 is the one that's 4 years old.
Yes.
Case 4. So it's not the photo case. The photo case you're talking
Right,
about.
but I'm talking about,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm putting them together.
Okay.
All those officers
Yes, ma'am.
are afraid what could happen to them if they say they took this photo. None of them were brave enough to turn it in. And yet, over and over in these cases, people who are afraid of the police and they run, it's immediately an admission of guilt. Why did you run? Yet the police officers were afraid to even show the photo to their superior officer. It's the language used when y'all interview them, you know, a runner. So I just want to juxtapose that people are fearful out there when the police come up to them. That's all I'm saying. And yet, you know, they don't have anyone who can just interview them and give them a written warning. They're afraid they could die or get hurt, or the dogs will be released.
Holly?
I just want to concur with what's been happening nationally, what I've seen here locally. If an officer approached me and said anything remotely aggressive, accusing, or that I thought was going to lead to getting jumped on, I'd be, maybe less than that, I'd be very afraid. You know, I don't blame people for wanting to run for their lives when they've seen what can happen in police interactions.
Well, I think that's good feedback for GPD to hear. I think at the end of the day, we're sort of stuck reviewing the policies that are, and procedures, and do we follow policies? So, but I think that feedback is very important to share, so I'm glad you did. All right, let's move on to another one. What number are we going to look at next? 21? 41. Okay, this is the one I had. Okay, 41. And we've got 2241 and then we've got 2141. And I
It's
got
22.
Okay.
It's the,
22.
That's very good.
22.
All right, well, let me ask before we go into that, am I correct that the city commission has rescheduled their meeting to discuss some of this?
For the 3rd time in November.
Well, yeah, I'm not in charge of the city commission
Yeah.
scheduling, but yeah. So
it's November 15th,
15th.
Ms. Holt, is that correct? At 5:30
Okay.
in the main commission chamber?
Okay, so that would be of interest to any members who wish to attend. All right, so,
A question on that? If multiple members of this body attend and more than one speaks, does that mean it has to be advertised?
no, because you're representing yourself as an individual. You're welcome to say you serve on this advisory board, but you are representing any opinion or activity as an individual, just like I would say the same if I were there to speak, unless we have a voted on position, and we can talk about that later. I know Mr. Johnson wants to talk about it in general.
Did somebody give a time on the 15th?
6 o'clock, is it? 5:30?
It is 5:30.
Put that on the calendar.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah.
Okay. All right, well, why don't you go ahead and, Inspector Koenig, just kind of talk generally. I suspect each of us have actually read through this one more than once. I know that when I worked the city fair, I think it got released the day before, so I brought a printed copy with me in case anybody asked any questions.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so I'll let you kind of go through the investigation component in this report.
So this is subsequent to the apprehension of Mr. Bradley. These were a few circumstances which we recognized needed to be addressed when we started looking into the review of the actual canine incident. But after very easily, we have 3 individuals, Officer Dustin Johnson, Officer Schnitzler, and Officer Miller, who were involved either in taking a photo of Mr. Bradley and his injuries or disseminating a photo of Mr. Bradley and his injuries, and all 3 of them were sustained and they all received written warnings. Must be the other 2 individuals, Officer Millman and Officer Schott, we identified in looking at some of the messaging that, just for an explanation, everybody knows that within our computer system, we have a way to message each other when you're on a call for service or between each other. And it's just a way of instant messaging within our system, which is logged and kept for eternity. Maybe not eternity, but for quite a long time. And these 2 officers sent inappropriate messages back and forth to each other about the incident. And with that said, they both received an employee notice. They both received a 40-hour suspension. They both are receiving training with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And they both are receiving 30 hours of community engagement, which they have 90 days to attend. And the difference between Officer Millman and Officer Schott is that Officer Millman was removed as an FTO. So in this case in particular, all 5 officers were found responsible and the allegations were sustained, and the discipline is as seen here. So that's
What's an FTO?
a field training officer, so he will not be allowed to train other police officers within our agency.
So all these actions occurred following the arrest?
That's correct. Yes, sir. So that is why in this particular circumstance, this investigation has a separate number because it involves, and we did an admin review of the canine apprehension, and that is 22-43. And that's why, that's our next one that we can go into.
Okay. Are there any questions about 2241, about the actions and the discipline subsequent to the canine apprehension?
One other, would you explain employee notice?
Absolutely. So it is a written notice that is given to employees, which basically explains that the actions that they did in this particular incident were inappropriate, and it is the formal, discipline sign form you get. An employee notice itself is considered discipline, but the additional discipline is the 40 hours, and then the removal from FTO and stuff like that. So,
Thank you.
yes, just a formal notice, written document. Ms. Sheila?
Sheila?
Okay, so again, I'd like to say none of them were brave enough to come forward with the photos. Also, this is a shortened, so initially, when this report was done, it was said that Mr. Bradley didn't stop at a stop sign. It was changed. Cannabis, same thing, that we're not supposed to be arresting for that. I've heard that repeatedly. So this is just, I know we're going to get into it in 43.
Yes, ma'am.
But this is part of this investigation, so if it's incorrect, it shouldn't be here. Saying that he repeatedly reached down under his lap with his right hand. There's no one who's seen the video that saw any movement with his upper body as if he was reaching under. To say his shirt was flipped, as if he had just removed something from his waistband. I mean, why are suppositions part of what's in an official document? So through training experience, these factors had Officer Millman to believe Bradley may be armed or there may be a weapon under the seat. Yeah, when we look at these IA cases, many times, and there was one here, the excuse is they're young, they didn't read what was required when they checked off that they had. So on the one hand, they're young officers. Here, he's so experienced, and they have him on all these special details because he likes to chase after suspects, according to his conversation with the other officer. So he's so experienced, he thought he could have removed a gun. And it wasn't proven by body cam footage that Bradley struck the officer in the shoulder. We're taking his word for it. And the injuries, from what the reporter told me when he went to the review, was that the injuries were not in the initial report. So the last thing is, I'm very disturbed by.
Ms. Payne, may I interrupt for 1 second? Are you
Yeah.
in 43 now instead of 41?
No, I'm in 41, but
Okay,
y'all did
okay.
provide
Yeah, there is
all that summary at
yes.
the beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
So
It's all related to 43, so that's why I asked.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So over and over, the officers are like, "Oh, I took the photo to share amongst my coworkers. So for personal reasons, I did not have any intention of putting it into evidence." Then saying that Detective Hall had taken a photo of it, she denies it. He didn't want to come forward because it'd be incriminating. Another IA case we have here, the officer went 3 weeks without putting DUI urine into the evidence locker, was repeatedly. Didn't do that.
Yes, ma'am.
So the photos weren't going to go in. And then I'd like to know what community engagement they had to do, as we know. I trust that y'all do a lot of remedial work afterwards, but over and over in this community, especially what he said about going east, I don't care how it's spun, we all know he's going to the black community to see if he can harass someone. And GPD has had officers in the past that were in back of pickup trucks egging black people in the black community. And so, to me, would you be willing to read, or I can, even though my hands are shaking, the conversation to get it into the record of Mr. Millman, Officer Millman and Officer Schott, what they thought was just hilarious about, yeah, got to get my running shoes on, it's disgusting. And so they do get in trouble, but they shouldn't be here anymore, because you cannot train that kind of attitude out of police officers, and that's why people are afraid. So could you read that?
Sheila, what do you want her to do? You want her
Page
to?
7,
She wants me to read the comments between the two officers off of the investigation.
I don't know, that's necessary. But I don't disagree with your point, Sheila, that this
No,
is totally
we are
inappropriate.
being recorded. A lot of people don't have access
Okay.
to this.
All
I
right,
don't want to hear how they were disciplined and yet they're still on the force. There's a lot of comments during the investigation where it's like they explain it away. Going east just means I'm going that way. That's not believable. And then, so they're allowed, when they're being investigated, to say, oh, I didn't mean that. Oh, I was just, yeah. People know that I like to be on special units because I like to run, because that's how I get my exercise. Though that wasn't said, we know that he wants to chase after people and take them down, and hopefully with a canine.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Let Khalid have something.
I can see the sense of wanting this read into the verbal record, but I can also understand if Inspector Koenig is a little uncomfortable with it. So if I will offer to help with an alternative. If you be Millman, I'll be shot. We can just read it through.
I don't mind reading the comments, I just
Okay.
want to make sure I'm following the protocol of the chair
Right.
telling me what to do, so that's what
Well,
I'm trying
I'll
to.
turn to the other members of the board. What do you think we should do? I mean, it's up to you all. Do you want them to read it into the record for the community, or shall we, here's the thing. I think this whole issue is going to be discussed at the city commission meeting.
Which has been delayed twice.
I know, but
Yeah.
we're an advisory board to the city commission, so I want to make sure that they can have their meeting. I don't know if they're going to want to do this again. I don't know what their plan is or anything, but I don't know. Would you guys want them to read it in or not move on, or what do you guys?
Over the years, my understanding has always been that we review IA cases.
Mhm.
And that if we see any kind of common themes or something that stands out, that we can collectively put a statement together,
Okay.
move on a statement together as a recommendation to the city commission or
Okay.
the police chief. I'd be more comfortable doing that than I would getting into a practice of reading IA cases aloud.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, because although, and I read through this, and I know that a lot of people who don't have access to it, but this particular case, in particular because it has drawn so much controversy and interest, it's not a done deal in terms of all the issues involved in this case. And I don't see a need to go through all of the print reading, because there will be that meeting coming up. There will be chances for the public to ask questions and to, if you hear portions of this in the future, I just don't see it, personally, I don't see a need to do the reading at this particular meeting.
I'm not sure if they're commenting on the same thing. She's not talking about reading the whole case.
No,
She's talking about this
reading
three-quarter page.
I can ask questions about each one.
Okay.
All right, why don't we do that, ask the questions, and I do think Norb's suggestion of the council coming up with sort of common themes, concerns, et cetera, because a lot of the stuff stuff you bring forward as concerns are very legitimate concerns. They're just not necessarily part of our charge directly. So I want to make sure we can take a good look at the overall themes and share that with both the City Commission and GPD. Because I think that would be more effective for our ability to make any change happen. Go ahead, Jill.
I haven't seen that we've done anything like that since I've been on.
I know,
It's always
this could be
been
our first
flowing.
time.
Well, I recommend, we recommend that they get rid of the K-9 unit. Is that gonna be in the report?
We can-
Because at that meeting, I will get 3 minutes to speak if I'm chosen to speak. That won't give me enough time to read all these disgusting, driving out east right now, gonna have some fun tonight. I can't do that in 3 minutes.
Well, I encourage you to, so here's what I recommend. I recommend we not necessarily read this in a dramatic reading format, but I think, Sheila, you should continue with any other questions or comments, and then what I'd like to do, it's on our agenda for number 7, is to decide if we're gonna take a position formally as a body or not, and what we would recommend. And I suspect we're gonna end up with some things we all agree on, and then there's other things that are for further conversation. But at the end of the day, we can recommend getting rid of the canines, but that we don't get to decide. It's just really a recommendation. So I would much rather focus on what we do have jurisdiction over and try to make some constructive suggestions. But in this case, I think this would give us a good opportunity. I think this is our first real opportunity to communicate on areas of concern beyond the annual report. Because the annual report is very generic.
Well, I hope we get different people on the board, because I know that would never go forward about the canine, even be addressed in a report
I mean,
with
we
the
can-
present board.
That's up to the commission. All right, so, all right, back to number 40. Are we on 41 or 43?
41, you said I could ask you a few
Yep, go ahead and
things?
ask questions.
So, I am gonna write up my own report,
Okay.
but some of the stuff that wasn't just joking, general banter, when he talked about the dog bite, the one officer said Officer Millman had bit the dog's eye off. And that was just general banter, bring your trainee, which he can't anymore. I bet Mr. Bradley's reconsidering his decisions meant that being dog bit probably doesn't feel great despite where it is. So once, I don't know, despite where it is, meaning having the eye taken out. So once the canine apprehension happens, the regret of running appears evident very quickly. And we know that during the body cam footage, when Mr. Bradley talked about nerve damage, his eye is out, he was told, well, you shouldn't have run. And then when Officer Millman says, get after it, meant catch criminals, go out east was meant as a general term, which is not in the context of that, what was the piece that I wanted read. It doesn't seem like that. And messages like, on a scale of 1 to foot pursuit, how bad do you want to chase someone today? Laugh out loud. It's just all so unprofessional. I would think that the other officers would be ashamed to be in the same police department, and it's acidic. It makes them all so Shot replies, just tie my shoes and show up to your calls, because he also likes to run after people. So I won't go on and on about it, but Millman more than once says he's going out east to have some fun tonight. That's in quotes. He knows that he's going after, hoping to apprehend a black person. So that's all I'm going to say about that, since we're not going to read it.
Okay. All right, want to move on to 43?
Can I-
Oh, go ahead, Colleen, sorry.
Again, reinforcing that go out east remark really struck me, because I live in the east. And it's like they're saying that going east is the favorite place to range with the dogs and hunt up somebody.
Yep.
It sounds like they're describing play or recreation.
All right, number 43.
Absolutely.
Yes, sorry.
So, just in the conversation of both investigation 41 and 43, the investigators watched all of the body-worn camera video. And they paid attention to all of the comments and all of the things that were said or done on the scene in order to bring attention to them if we thought they were inappropriate or hold the officers accountable. We are trying to be as transparent as we can, and the ones that did inappropriate things that rose to the level of discipline received some pretty significant discipline. So for 41, as we navigate through this case, this is the administrative review of the canine apprehension of Mr. Bradley. It also brings mention to the V2 Global report, which is the outside agency that did their independent review of this canine apprehension. Without going through each and every one, this apprehension falls within our policy guidelines. The officers, and immediately starting with the traffic stop, Mr. Bradley driving into Eden Park Apartments very slowly for quite a distance before he stopped the vehicle. Officer Millman interacting with him. You can watch the body-worn camera for quite some time. The audio turns on and you can hear Officer Millman ask Mr. Bradley to get out of the car, at which time Mr. Bradley gets out of the car, subsequently struggles with Officer Millman, pushes off of Officer Millman and runs into the complex. We establish a perimeter. We determine what the charges are that we have, because in order for us to activate a canine, we need to have the criteria met. The canine was not working that night. He was at home. After, subsequently finding out that this gentleman was a convicted felon, he was armed. We had battery on law enforcement or resisting with violence, either or, and then pushing off and running, and then being somewhere within an apartment complex where other citizens reside, and not knowing whether or not he was armed or not, even though there was only one gun found in the car. We activated the canine unit and they responded from home. Within a very short amount of time, Mr. Bradley was apprehended, maybe about somewhere, I'm using a general guesstimate, between 50 and 100 feet from the canine vehicle. The dog got out of the car, circled around, and ended up apprehending Mr. Bradley. And then officers, subsequently handcuffed him and pulled him out. So immediately calling EMS multiple times, trying to render as much aid as we could. We're not medical practitioners, but we do have some medical training. And then the review of this is absolutely within the policy guidelines of why we would call the canine unit out. We clarified that, in the report, the policy is mentioned, and also the V2 Global company came in and did their own subsequent review of the incident of our policy, compared it to other agencies, and both our review and the V2 Global review found that this was within the policy guidelines of the use of the canine unit. Unfortunately, Mr. Bradley was very significantly injured during this, and we are empathetic to him and his family and the things he had to go through after, and we understand it has had a significant impact on him. But we followed the guidelines for
We'll
everything.
have public comment shortly, sir.
So this is the administrative review. There is a lot to it, and we could go into every specific detail, but I will stop there.
Okay, Reverend Grant?
Yeah, and this report, one thing that really worried me was when I read on page 3, Corporal Merle let him know where they are as if the dog gets close to them and states that he, K9 Ranger, doesn't care. And that comment, he'll grab anybody. Then he was asked to explain what that meant. The response was, he will not necessarily recognize a police uniform or discriminate between a police officer and a suspect. And that response kind of worried me, because not being able to distinguish between the officer at the scene or a suspect, again, that worries me to a certain degree of that comment.
How would the canine know who he's supposed to be getting?
So they follow a track of scent. So typically, if you've ever worked with a canine unit, the backup unit stays behind the canine unit and allows the canine unit to lead the track. So every canine handler I've ever tracked with, and I've run a lot and jumped over fences myself, every time you track with them, they say stay behind because the dog is tracking the scent of the person that ran from them, and we basically keep that area contained where we won't allow citizens or anyone else, any other officers to walk through it. Where did you last see the individual running? And then the dog has a fresh sense. And the reason you see the dog kind of swirling around, if you watch the video, around the air conditioning unit, is because the scent is swirling with the fan, right?
Oh.
So the dog is trying to pick up and keep on the scent.
Oh,
So any canine dog, Reverend Griner, that I have ever worked with, the canine handlers always tell us to stay behind them, allow them to lead them, and give them some space. And then they will direct us what they want us to do as being a backup to that canine unit. So they want the dog to go first.
So is it just this particular canine that has a problem not being able to distinguish between an officer and a suspect, or was there an issue with just this one dog?
You know, I wish I had that answer for you and I could get it from one of our canine specialists, but I will tell you that every canine I've ever worked with, they said don't get close, right? Because they're on the track, they know where they're going. And I can't answer that, but I could get an answer for you if you'd like.
Okay.
That's a very good question. I'll be honest, I think all of us have always keep a distance from all of those dogs, just because they're on a track and doing their job. And we don't want to interfere with the track or getting in the way.
Okay, I think that comment just jumped out, that response just jumped out at me and stuck with me because of how it was worded. He was not talking about this canine. I don't know if any others have the same problem with this canine. Cannot distinguish between an officer and a suspect. So I just would like to know a little bit more about that, when and if possible. If it's just this particular dog that has or has had that issue with not being able to determine.
So I can tell you in the past, there have been several officers that have been bitten by our canine in apprehensions, or I can tell you that in the past, if that's of any help to you. But if you want a very direct answer, I can get you a much more direct one. I'm not the canine expert, so.
Okay, because because someone besides me probably in the near future is probably going to ask that very same question,
Right.
I imagine.
I would imagine, and I don't know for sure, but I would imagine that the city commission meeting will talk more generally about the use of canines
Yes.
and the use of canine because it's gonna, that's what I presume they're gonna be talking about, and having that bigger, broader conversation more about canines in general. So I encourage you to attend or tune in.
Well, I'll be there. Again, in asking the question, I don't mean any disrespect, because as a former officer, I've seen canines in action when I was in the academy and so forth. So I do understand that that's possible. I'm just asking because of the comment about this particular canine that bit Terrell Bradley.
So for all of us, and I will tell you this, I used to be a mounted unit rider. The handlers are the ones that are in charge of the scene, right? The canine, or if I was on a mounted unit horse, I determine as the person responsible for the animal that I am in control of, I instruct people around me, all right, as to what I'm going to do and what my expectations are. And I know that our canine handlers do the same. And Reverend, we will, at that November meeting, we plan to have our canine sergeant who is responsible for the training of our canines, and our training unit, the canine unit itself, will be there. But I'll get you an answer and supply it to Ms. Holt to provide back to you.
That's fine, and I know that will be coming up in the near future, so I do understand that.
But I think, the point broader about the canine, are we using canines, I have a feeling that's what the city commission meeting will be more about than,
Yeah.
we're reviewing the closed IA cases, but I have the feeling they're going to talk more broadly about policy and give guidance to GPD Sheila, you got more questions?
Do you have any, colleague, first, since I'm always sitting?
No.
So, yeah, it's been a while since I read all this stuff, but, okay, so on page 2, I just feel like after it all is over, y'all can find the gun, and of course, the initial report said that the loaded gun was in the console when actually the bullets were in back, it wasn't loaded. And then that when there's tons, when you do the investigation, there's tons of,
Ms. Sheila, if I may interrupt, the handgun was loaded and it had a 33 round magazine inside of the gun.
the initial report.
Right, yes ma'am, I understand
not-
I understand
Right.
discrepancies,
But
but
then when
I'm,
it's talked about, it's
Right.
like, oh, it was just a little, that officer didn't know anything about what was in it. He was off chasing.
yes ma'am.
So there's several things. He says, keep your hands where you could see them. Well, the film I saw, his hands were here. And again, the whole thing about his shirt was flipped up meant that he probably pulled a gun out of his waistband. And that he was moving his hands. No one I've talked to thinks that they saw his upper body moving as if he was trying to reach down. Can't do that unless, so again, the marijuana, B2, you say they're independent, but what I read about them is that it's made up of law enforcement. So I don't see that as independent. I mean, it's people who already have the narrative that,
You're talking about the outside reviewing agency?
yeah.
Okay. I don't know
From
anything
what I
about that.
read, it said that B2 is made up of, at one point, I checked on the website, made up of law enforcement officers and other people. I don't feel that is independent. Also, I think what I read was that in the initial press conference, the amount of bites is low in Gainesville, and what I think I read was that 25% of canines that go out, a bite happens. That doesn't seem low to me.
So that number is a national standard number, not our number of current bite ratios. So we've just recently, we've run it for the commission meeting, and I think this year we've had 12 bites for the entire.
How many? I saw
So it's
that.
100, it's over 100 deployments of the dog where an arrest was made, and only 12 times. And Captain Farrar is here, so he has the numbers, but our bite ratio is around a little over 11%.
So only 1 in 10 people get injured.
Oh, our canine, our entire canine unit has only done
11 out of, say, 110, 10%. So only 10% of the people get injured. Okay, so,
Sorry, what is public comment?
Well, right now we have public comment coming up after this, but what I'm going to recommend is once we finish the closed IA cases, that we move to public comment, and then we can move into the chief's update, just so you all can, it'll stay close with this conversation. So as soon as we're done here, we're going to go to public comment, and then on items that we've already covered or anything general.
okay, so I'll try to hurry up. I won't go through the whole
And-
thing.
and
I
I
also would like to say, the whole thing about the dog, he doesn't care, he'll bite anybody. He actually bit his handler before, and then you retrain him. There's a big announcement how the dog was taken off and he's been retrained. I don't believe he can be retrained not to be vicious. If it took a handler bar twice, dogs should be trained to voice command when they've got someone by the head. And it took twice with a bar And they obviously were fearful of him, and they're all joking about, don't get near him, he'll bite you. He should not be on the force at all. So I just want to say 2 more.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Bradley screams, your dog ripped my fucking eye out, bro. And Officer Ripley says, well, shouldn't have run from the police. Guess that'll teach him. I feel like the whole stuff on page 4, where he's not answering verbal commands to put his arms behind his back, he obviously should have been in shock, and the dog had bit him on the arm. You know, and again, that's like, we'll see how he was resisting. It's just disturbing how the police talk about it. They obviously do not see him as a human being. Again, officer, when he's sitting at the curb says, shouldn't have been running, bro, shouldn't have been running. Bradley answers, I ain't doing shit wrong, bro. People getting killed by police. Why shouldn't I run? That is the belief. And yet it's used against people. My husband's been profiled in our neighborhood and said that he looked like someone. He doesn't look like anybody. And he, you know, I mean, it's a vicious loop. And then one more, Officer Henderson says, good night, Auntie. When a neighbor says they want to beat you up, really, to be honest with you, that's what they train them to do. Well, it wasn't his auntie. There's a lot of disrespect that's shown. And you can see it in several of the IA cases where the banter, they're laughing. It's just awful. And then you wonder why the community doesn't trust the police.
Okay, any other IA cases we want to talk about? What I'd like to recommend is we have public comment now, and we'll queue folks up for 3 minutes each. And we'll invite you all, you can either speak to the material that's been presented or general public comment. It's your 3 minutes each. And I do encourage you to attend the City Commission meeting on the 15th, because I think they will be talking more generally about GPD, and I'm not totally sure because I haven't seen the agenda, but I do think there's going to be a more in-depth conversation, because our purview is limited to closed IA cases and making recommendations. So, yes.
I will, and I apologize, Ms. Sheila, we've run the canine bite apprehension number so many times. I will get the current one that we have that we provided for the commission meeting, and I'll provide it to you. But I know for 2022 so far, we had 12 bites. And the last number of apprehensions where we deployed the dog, meaning we just tracked with the dog didn't bite anybody, they tracked to where someone was, and we made an arrest, was about 105 times. But I will clarify those numbers and get them to you. But we've been running them several times, which brings us to a little over 11% for our bite ratio. And if something gets up to the 20s or 25% bite ratio, it triggers, we should be reviewing, and that comes from case law, actually from a case down in South Florida. So
Sheila had a question or
yes, and
comment,
just
and then
to
Polly
mention
has a
that.
question or comment. Sheila?
So I only want that information.
Sure.
If it says exactly what the person was arrested for. We were told before that the dogs are kept on the leash. Mm-hmm. We see in a previous from 2018 that the officer says, I'm going to release the dog. So then the officer would have no control. I'm going to release the dog. I don't really care to see the numbers if there is an explanation of what the person is alleged to have done and where they were bitten and what dog it was. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. No problem.
Polly, question, comment?
I did wonder if that meant, does the dog run free, or just that the dog is deployed, they still got it on a leash?
Deployed, not free.
Has there been any significant personnel change in IA since the beginning of this year?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. Last year, the fall, November, so not 2022, but in the fall, Sergeant Dana Strama retired after 30 years of service, and she was replaced by Sergeant Tracy Fundenberg in the fall. And Tracy has 25 plus years. I know she's in the draw, a seasoned investigator, so. So that is one significant change that we've had. Other than that, no, sir. It has continued to be myself, Lieutenant Durst, and Sergeant Leah Hayes. Those are the three that have stayed, so. Not quite 2022, but.
All right, thank you. I'm going to recommend we move into public comment, and then we can come back for the chief's update. But let's go ahead and invite the public to come forward and give us your thoughts. Hello and welcome.
Hi. So I read over, this is about 43. I read over this over and over again, the summary of the incident, and like for 10 minutes, and I can't find the place where it actually mentions the bite happening. And that was really, I was concerned about that because it kind of seems like maybe the bite wasn't caught on camera, so it wasn't mentioned in the summary. I'm not sure why that happened, but to me, all of the most important questions, besides why this happened even in the first place, why the canine was even there, but given that the canine was there, the most important questions are answered by when did that bite take place, because I want to know, was the presence of the canine announced before the bite happened? Was Bradley given a chance to come out before, once that announcement was made, and he was made aware that there was a dog present? How long did that bite take? How long was the dog on his eye? And if it was longer than a split second, why wasn't there an immediate command to disengage? And I don't understand why. I mean, this is the most important moment and the reason that this whole report was written up, because there was a bite. So where is that in this summary? And can I get some more information about that?
I think probably the folks from GPD would be the best folks to respond to you because they're the authors. But I had not read it with that sort of perspective, so now I'm.
Doesn't the word apprehended, the word apprehended needs to be
Yeah,
read
no, it's an
seeds
interesting,
with
I
teeth.
hadn't thought about it that way.
Right, and I can locate the page, but I've got it.
Right, apprehend
Okay.
means grab with teeth.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do
Oh,
you
Deborah,
want
do you need
to-
folks to identify themselves?
Probably page
Could you tell us your name, sir, so we can make sure you're in the minutes?
Yeah, Nico Siegel-Wright.
Say
N-I-K-O.
N-I-K-O, and your last name
You
is?
just do S.
That's Nico S. That'll work for me. All right, anybody else wish to speak? Public comment? Yes, hello, welcome.
I don't really have much to say in this space. It doesn't seem like this is the effective room to produce change on this matter. Like you keep saying, the November
Yeah.
15th one maybe is more appropriate, but I do want to say that it's pretty concerning to hear the narrative of how the police, like this officer, presented this whole thing, like the repeated discussion of the dog being off is completely irrelevant. It's a dog. Like the dog doesn't have a set schedule in its own consciousness. Like, and the fact that it's a little concerning for you. I'm sorry, Reverend. I don't know your name.
Reverend Greiner?
That you sought out that one narrative in the discussion on how the dog can't decipher cop versus suspect. Both of those are human beings. Like it's concerning to me that the dog is biting human beings at all. And so, I want to see this space be like officer and suspect, that person is still presumed innocent and should be treated as such. And that is not happening in this conversation. And that's the concerning part, but thank you.
Thank you. Can we get your name for the,
Kimber T.
thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Yes, welcome.
Thank you. My name's Bobby Murmur. I'm going to be very brief here. I just have one request, and then I have one comment that I want everyone in this room who has the authority to make recommendations or policy change to think about. My request is that the advisory council do recommend to the city commission that they dismantle the K-9 unit entirely. That's my request. And what I want you to think about is this. If so far this year, in 11 cases where K-9 is deployed, the K-9 bites, why should we accept that as a unit that should exist? If we had, and every time, if it were that every time a police officer was deployed, he or she shot someone 11% of the time, would we accept that? If we're not going to accept it from humans, we shouldn't accept it from K-9s. Period. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay.
Would you like me to address in the narrative?
Yeah, if you've got it, you found where you found the spot.
To the gentleman. So in the report on page 4 in the second paragraph, it talks about that the officer was able to see K-9 Ranger had apprehended Bradley on his right hand. So we don't use the word bite, but we use the word apprehended. That's the,
I saw that, but that was on the hand, so when did the bite occur on his eye? That was my question.
That was just prior to the bite on the hand, sir. But it is not.
Right, so it's not mentioned.
No.
Right.
No, sir.
So I guess that, yeah, that's the crux of my question, that this entire report is written about something that is not mentioned in the summary of events. That's really weird.
I would have to look at the conclusion and the part of the rest of what it was done, but here I don't know if we
And
have time to do that.
so this report was written and it was decided that no misconduct occurred for an action that is omitted from the summary. That's very, very strange. I would love to, I have to go in a minute, but I would love to know why that is, because that baffles me.
And I would encourage you to watch the video because there is a timeline that actually explains about the bite, about how long the bite was, about 45 seconds, the use of the breaker bar. The video, we put all of our video publicly for public transparency, not only the video that we produced, but also all body-worn camera was released. We had to ask the state attorney's office to do that ahead of the prosecution of the case, including all the report. It will be redacted with any type of victim information per Marcy's law, but everything that we have in terms of the investigation, every body-worn camera of the officers that were on the scene, all of the reports, including the arrest report in its totality. If you were to ask for this report now in a normal investigation, we would never be able to release the narrative. We would never be able to release the supplements. And that was, we asked the state attorneys for that transgression so everyone could see all of it and see all of the videos.
Okay, well, I will, oh, go ahead.
But the unedited videos besides the cop propaganda is out too.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Those were released the day of the press conference that we had.
Where can we find that unedited video?
So you would have to submit a public records request to our records division and they have it all ready to go.
Yeah, and they can get it to you.
Can you public records requests are often denied or technicalities. Would you be able to tell us the exact verbiage to use in order to obtain that video?
Absolutely, I get with you.
Yeah, Inspector
I got
Koenig
one
will be
since I don't know if
helpful.
that's something you can say now.
No, you just have to submit a request to the records department at our
What would you say
Chesapeake
now?
Police
What
Department.
would you say in that request though?
I would like to request all the body worn camera for the,
Unedited full footage of this event.
yeah.
And she
The
can give you,
Gainesville Sun also has everything.
oh, that's right, they do. I do recommend if you haven't seen the video to watch the video.
I couldn't get through it.
Yeah, it's difficult. It is. It's
I
not
just-
an easy
I had
thing.
to stop.
All right, is there any other internal affairs cases that we wish to discuss, or shall we go ahead? Chief, come on up and tell us how your arrests are going.
Good evening. Go over the rest for the last month. This is for August, rather, August summary. Nope, I have the wrong one then. It's September. Give me just a minute. Okay, so the first slide will reflect the adult arrest, and it shows you the adult arrest for felonies and misdemeanors. Shows that there were 71 felony arrests and 47 misdemeanor. You look at the demographic breakdown, 13 black females for felonies, 34 black males for felonies, 17 white males for felonies, and 6 white females for felonies. Misdemeanor count shows 7 black females and 20 black males, as well as 6 white females and 12 white males were arrested for misdemeanor offenses. The total count for September was 118 arrests. The adult arrests for the top 10 offenses, we note that there were 13 people arrested for simple battery, 13 total for simple battery. Of those, 2 were other female, 2 were black female, 4 were black males, 1 white female, and 4 white males. The next highest category was for grand theft auto, and there you had 1 black female, 3 black males, 1 white female, and 3 white males. Trespass after warning was the next category, along with possession of controlled substance, felony. The trespass after warning had 3 black females, 1 black male, and 3 white females. The possession of controlled substance, you had 2 black females, 4 black males, and 1 white male. The next slide gives you a breakdown on the sworn complaints for adults and felony and misdemeanor. You see that there were 48 felony sworn complaints and 88 misdemeanor, and this is for adults. There was a total of 136 for the month. In that group, you have 8 black females that were charged with felonies, 23 black males were charged, 3 white females, and 14 white males. In the misdemeanor count, there were 25 black females, 28 black males, 10 white females, and 24 white males. Those charges ended up being, looking at the breakdown, you had 30 petty theft retail, 1 of those was the other male, 7 black females, 8 black males, 6 white females, and 8 white males. The next highest category was 14, that was simple battery, 4 black females, 5 black males, 2 white females, and 3 white males. It was followed by simple battery domestic, 3 black females, 7 black males, and then petty theft, which had a total of 9. You had 4 black females, 2 black males, and 3 white females. The next breakdown is pre-arrest, adult.
Go ahead, Kelly, go ahead.
The written threat to kill or injure, do you know detail of how, was that on social media or a personal note, or do you know how it actually went?
I don't know the specifics of that. It could be a written threat against a public official. It could be a written threat on the internet. That is a felony if you say that you're going to go, particularly to a school or anything along those lines, and do something, harm someone. You can't be charged with a felony. But I don't know specifically that particular charge. Did I answer your question, Mr. Blunt?
Well, you told me what you couldn't tell me.
All right. But if you want the information, I can find out specifically before you get it to you.
I am curious about how that's...
All right.
Stop writing notes. Stop writing notes.
Yeah, don't think about it.
Don't do that.
We'll get that information for you. Under the pre-arrest, we had a breakdown of 2 black females, 2 black males, 4 white females, 2 white males, and 1 other female. Those charges were retail theft, and you see the demographic breakdown, there were 11 total. 1 other female, 1 black female, 2 black females, 2 black males, 4 white females, and 2 white males. Next category deals with notice to appear adult misdemeanor charges. There were a total of 10. You had 6 white females and 4 white males. Notice to appear adult misdemeanor, the breakdown. You have alcohol beverage possessed by a person under 21, 3 white females and 2 white males. You have petty theft retail misdemeanor, 2 white females, petty theft retail again, and then followed by alcohol beverage possession by a person under 21. Next slide deals with juvenile arrest. Yes,
Colleague,
Blunt.
question?
Yeah, it's striking that there's,
All right.
that all white is at an opportunity. It looks like either that's an opportunity that's only offered in certain categories, or black folks who are innocent in these things.
But you know the good part of possession of alcohol under 21, and that's when we're down in the bars in Midtown, and unfortunately a lot of the folks that we run across are not black. I mean, this is primarily young college kids that we're dealing with. Juvenile arrests, you have 14 felonies, 2 misdemeanors. September, there were a total of 16. 1 black female was arrested, 10 black males, and these are for the felonies, and 1 white female and 2 white males. Misdemeanor count, 1 black female and 1 black male, for a total of 2. The breakdown on the charges shows you that auto theft, felony, 4 black males, grand theft, value $750 to $499.99, 1 white female and 1 white male, grand theft again of a firearm, a black female and a black male. Those are the top 3. The next slide shows you the total sworn complaints, a total of 11 for September. 1 was a black female, 4 were black males. You had another 1 for white female, and for the misdemeanors you had 2 black females and 2 males, followed up at 1 white female, 1 white male rather. The breakdown of the charges: simple battery, you had 1 black male, 1 white male, and that was for 2. Everything else is single occurrence, the grand theft auto, petty theft, retail, discharge firearm. Next slide deals with the juvenile civil citation. Yes.
So, previous slide, I was trying not to ask too many questions again. Possession of firearm weapon by delinquent under 24 years of age, that's different than the one above it, because is delinquent actually a word used because they had gotten in trouble before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you adjudicate it as delinquent, then
So
okay,
24
okay.
years old,
you could still have that delinquent status.
okay, thank you.
Civil side.
Okay, the juvenile citations, total of 5. The top offenses, what they show: a black female, 2, and 2 black males, 1 white male, and those are civil citations. The breakdown shows you 2 simple batteries, black female, and 1 male for the simple battery. Disruption of the school, religious, or lawful assembly for the black male. Again, that's a breakdown for those. That concludes the presentation. Any questions for me regarding what we presented?
No questions on that. I will say, the auto theft always jumps out to me as a juvenile thing, and man, they get a lot of trouble for that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it kind of goes with the pattern that
Yeah,
they steal the cars, and sometimes they steal the cars to go commit a violent act.
yep,
And in addition to that, they burglarize some of these cars and find unlocked cars with guns in them.
yep,
So that's a big problem for us that we continue to fight.
yep.
Yeah, and Chief, I've been talking to my neighbors on my street because some of them know I'm from law enforcement, so I've been talking to them and encouraging them, advising them to be sure and lock their vehicles. Even in that driveway, even if they have them motion lights, still, I've been talking to them in recent weeks, advising them to make sure their vehicles are locked and secured. And they appreciate me talking to them about that. So
Yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, it's unfortunate, that folks do it, and some people probably lose their lives because of it. It's just not a smart thing to do. Just like having a gun in your home, you have it in the car, you should secure it. But to leave it in an unlocked car, particularly if it's in plain view, which has happened, it's just troubling to be that irresponsible with something that can take someone's life.
One thing that bothers me is adults even, and just on the news today, a teacher was arrested because she sent a student out to her vehicle to get something, and the student found the gun right there in the console, and what could have happened in that case.
Yeah.
So I've also been talking to my neighbors saying, if you have guns, you need to secure them where your kids won't get hold of them and something bad happens. So I've just been doing a little neighborhood PR,
We appreciate that.
on my street, in my media, and because a lot of kids are around there.
Yeah. Thank you for it. We appreciate the help.
All right.
Oh, are we gonna hear about
Yep,
this
yep, we've
one?
got the proactive and reactive.
And there's another IA stapled to the
I
back
know,
of mine.
I see that. I got the same one. I'm wondering if those are the missing pages.
No, that's what I thought, but it's a full report that we just didn't have stacked.
Oh, all right.
Okay,
That's- keep
if you'd
going.
like to go over the proactive and reactive, I
Yeah,
think
what does that mean?
Mr. Johnson requested this previously.
Yes,
I asked us to bring it back.
Well, your timing is perfect.
And, gives you a little insight about how folks are arrested or where most of the arrests come from. The first slide shows the proactive arrest. There were 88 in the month of August, and the 250 that were reactive. And proactive means that the officer initiated the activity to make that arrest. It could be a traffic stop, it could be, seeing a person conceal themselves. It could be a whole host of things that the officer had some reason to initiate the contact. The reactive is simply somebody called us and we responded, and as a result of that, we end up arresting someone. And you can see the breakdown there, and there were, out of 88, 14 of those were black females, 44 were black males, 10 were white females, and 18 were white males. And when you look at the reactive, you see that we had 52 black females, 116 black males, 28 white females, and 49 white males, and 4 other. Again, this is just to give you some insight. Out of 338 arrests, 26 of those were the result of proactive activities. With the proactive activities, typically it's where an officer prevents the crime from occurring or has an impact or observes the crime that is occurring. You look at the adult arrests, 133. Again, out of that, 26% were proactive, 74 were reactive. The demographic breakdown is attached to it. It shows 20 black males, 2 black females, 2 white females, and 11 white males for proactive activity. And when you look at the reactive, you see the 18 and for black females, 46 for black males, 10 for white females, and 22 for white males. So you can see the vast majority of the arrests that we make are the result of someone calling us for assistance.
Yeah, I am so confused. So the one on the left says arrest, one on the right says adult arrest, and I can't make the numbers add up.
Adult and juvenile, I guess, on the left.
So
What-
yeah.
Well, which page are you on?
Okay, so I'm
The
looking
first
at.
page.
Yeah, I don't understand the difference. Because the second page says adult arrest, the first page says arrest.
I think
So does that
that's-
include juveniles too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
what I think.
that's a
I think
total.
it's all
Okay.
arrests.
Yeah,
So-
that's the total of all arrests. And then you have the breakdown with adult
Okay.
arrests,
Yeah, it's combined.
Okay,
then adults one, just to give you some idea of out of that number, how many were adults,
okay.
Ooh, it's mostly juveniles.
okay?
Well, more juveniles than I would like to
So-
see, yeah.
You make it way too.
The,
Yeah.
the next slide, the adult sworn complaints, proactive and reactive. 22% were proactive and 118 were reactive. Look at the demographic breakdown, 10 black females, 10 black males, 5 white females, and 6 white males, 2 other. For the reactive, 25 black females, 53 black males, 13 white females, and 25 white males, and 2 other. Again, the vast majority of the arrests that we make is because someone called us. The next slide deals with, and that was sworn complaint, this deals with getting to a pre-arrest, proactive and reactive. Proactive, we had 30%, reactive, we had 70. 1 black female, 1 white female, and 1 white male were given a pre-arrest alternative, and 1 black female, 1 black male, and 3 white females and 1 white male. When we were called, they were given that alternative. So when we initiated the activity, we had 3. When we were called, we had 7. The notice to appear, you have a total of 3 incidents. 2 were proactive and 1 was reactive. Again, typically an officer initiates some type of, it may be an open container or something along those lines, and issues the notice to appear. They had a black female and a white female issued a notice to appear on the proactive. On the reactive, a black female was issued a notice to appear. Juvenile arrests. See the breakdown of 17. Out of that, 12% were proactive and 88% was reactive. You see that we had 4 black females under reactive and 11 black males under reactive. And again, these are calls that folks call us to. Under the sworn complaints, proactive, reactive, total 22, 11 proactive and they're black males under the juvenile sworn complaints. And then under the reactive, this is 50-50, you had 3 black females, 5 black males, 2 white females, and 1 white male under the proactive status for sworn complaints. Now, sworn complaints can be issued typically in lieu of an arrest. They decide to allow the person to allow it to be handled by the state attorney's office and not take them to jail, and or the person may not be available. When they get on scene, they can't find them. They look for them, unable to locate them, and they complete a sworn complaint. Juvenile citations, you had a total of 2. black male and a white female. And again, it shows 100% of that. That's the conclusion of the reactive and proactive. If nothing else, I just want to kind of get you to look at the fact that most of our arrests are because we're responding to something when the citizen calls. Yes, the proactive arrests, and we want the officer to be proactive. We want them to be out there and really trying to get in front of some of the crimes before they occur. But, based on life the way it is right now, we are out there trying our best proactively to locate some of these folks before they commit these robberies or shoot at folks and homicides. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't get there before that happens. But reactively, we get there and we do what we have to do to make the arrest.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on proactive versus reactive? My only comment is the demographics seemed relatively spread out. I didn't notice any interesting trends demographically.
You saw that typically we're consistent with
Yeah.
the percentage. You look at the percentage when you look at what was proactive and what was reactive. There were some parallels between those as well.
Kali, you have a question or comment?
One is kind of peripheral or housekeeping is, I think we could spare some money running this stuff in color.
I know.
And I only noticed it because it's this stray IA has
Well,
colored on it. And
the stray IA
and it's a
one
fourth,
we've already read.
and it's a fourth preventable crash. We had a lot, and all from Sergeant Koprowski of Traffic Safety. So he's on the case, but a lot of crashes happen.
People driving fast.
Just a point of information, a large share of our internal complaints are internal. They originate from the officers inside the building or personnel inside the building.
Yeah.
A good share of them.
A lot of it comes from internal. Not more than I think the general public would assume.
Right. It's because someone saw something dealing with a violation of rules and regs and they reported it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief. All right, we've got two items of business. One is under Police Advisory Council comments, and Fareed had put on there discussing a commission recommendation. And I'm open to however it could be. At this point, I don't know what I would recommend, actually, so I'd be curious to hear from you what your thoughts are on this.
Well, my idea was that since this pack is written in the ordinance, the commission wants to have a special meeting about the Terrell Bradley incident and possibly implement or alternating some of the policies surrounding that incident. It was my recommendation that maybe we as a group should combine our meeting with the commission's special meeting, since again, we are the Police Advisory Council. And the issue did first come to us as a protest in a sense.
Right.
And we haven't actually been given an opportunity to react to that original meeting that we had with the community. So I think it would be a good idea that maybe we reach out to the commission to.
Well, because their meeting got rescheduled anyway. I mean, everything got kind of up in the air. I'm willing to reach out and ask and request that. I think the reality is I think many of us will be there anyway, and you're all invited to speak and say your own personal things. I don't think it's a bad idea to request it just to be noticed anyway.
And there's enough time in terms of noticing.
Yeah,
around, so.
yeah. So we're fine on timing. I mean, the last month and a half didn't go the way anybody planned, I don't think. But as far as content, I'll be happy to reach out and see if we can make that happen. I don't see why not. As far as a position on behalf of the group, what I think as far as, I don't know what they're looking for. I will say when I read these and what I hear, I was very disappointed at the behavior of the officers and the dialogue, that part, that was really disappointing to me. And I don't know there's necessarily a specific position to take on that, but that's the part that really resonated with me, because it is it's so damaging beyond, it's
Right.
eternally damaging for so much beyond all those in the incident. I know Sheila was talking earlier about one of the positions she would like to take is recommending GPD not have canines at all, and I think the commission will honestly discuss that. I don't know that this body knows enough about canines to recommend one way or another as a group, but I strongly encourage you to do that. And I know you were mentioning earlier you were concerned about having enough time to get all your thoughts out. I know that they will read it if you put it in writing to them, and you can, well, however it works for you.
I've already started writing
Good.
something.
I would say make sure you do that, because it's easy to get flustered in your 3 minutes. And not only that, you may have, I know you probably have more to say than 3 minutes. And you've already said you had more than 3 minutes. So I would probably leave it there. But those are sort of my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts on
First of all,
where to go.
that recommendation, even if the commission doesn't approve it, I think it should be brought up as a matter of record to show that we, as a advisory council understand that, but by the recommendation, it would show the Ridge is not here taking up these chairs
Right, correct.
once a month. That we have valid concerns, valid issues, valid questions that we want to, especially in this case, and I've been keeping track of this whole case, and I come from a unique perspective as a former officer, and of course I was dismayed, but then I was happy about the disciplinary action. But there's some more things that has to be drawn out, and I think if our meeting is combined with commission meeting, that would give us more leeway and more time to really dig into some of these other issues around this whole case. I watched that video, and it just,
It's very hard to watch.
it just, I couldn't.
Very hard to watch.
Yeah. So I agree to bring it up as a matter of record. Even if it's turned down, we at least.
Well, worst case scenario is we can have our own meeting, notice meeting, and it just may take place in there. I mean, we can notice it without their direct joint meeting part. Yes,
Yeah.
Colleen?
I want to go ahead and make a motion that this committee recommend to the city commission to suspend or disband the canine unit because human and animal behavior seems out of order at this point.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
Second?
Second.
All right. Okay, discussion on that being our formal position.
It's given us a lot of thought after reading this several times. One of the questions that I had asked was all this behavior after the apprehension? And I think the response was yes. And I'm, first of all, keying in on the behavior. And I guess I go back to the Internal Affairs report to look at the five officers and what action was taken against each of those officers for their behavior. And Millman and Schott, with their 40-hour suspensions, the community engagement, so forth and so on, I understand that. I think that's those are good actions to take, assuming that the 40-hour suspension was without pay. It was
Yes, sir.
without pay. The other three who were shopping, I'll call it's my word, shopping photos and distributing photos and so forth to receive a written warning. I understand the disciplinary process, and I have disagreed with the disciplinary process because you're locked into it, and I know what you have to do on a first case. I still don't feel a written warning is serious enough for what they did with those photos. It troubles me. It is completely unprofessional. It is reprehensible for them to do that, and a written warning just doesn't go far enough for me. So that's the action of the officers after the apprehension. The canine piece, I really feel is in the city commission's hands.
Yeah.
I really think the city commission has to look at that at a different level that we can, because understanding what our purpose is, and has been, and it hasn't changed, over the years, I step away from that a little bit because I think that's the city commission's hands. I think we as individual council members can speak our piece at the commission meeting and voice that. But I can't support the council taking a position on the canine piece. I can support the council taking and making a statement on the actions against the officers for their behavior and the seriousness of the action or not taken against those officers. That's the part that really troubles me.
Yeah.
I second, I don't think we have enough, and I don't think the commission either has enough subject matter expertise to make a sound decision to say whether the K-9 unit should be disbanded or not. Because it's still the industry standard to have a K-9 unit. And it's productive, so I don't think that it should be completely disbanded. That's my personal opinion, but also I don't think that we should make that decision right now. You should hear from the community.
Okay. And Bob, is Bob still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
Bob, do you have any thoughts or opinions on it? And then I'll come back to Sheila after that.
Yeah, we have this history of canines and African Americans, going back to days in Alabama, releasing the shepherds on peaceful marchers. So we have a history, and it's a very emotional issue. Yet nowadays, the canines and the units are generally trained better. The number of bites is few. Let us pretend that Mr. Bradley, with his gun in his car, had fled the car with the gun, with 38 bullets in a magazine, and went into an apartment complex where there's a lot of people, or went into a nearby building, which could be a community center, whatever there was. Sure want the dog to find him, and with the dog's nose 10,000 times more sensitive than ours, there's a place for it. So the question to me is not, do we disabandon the canine unit because there's that sordid history we had? Rather, are the officers and the dogs being trained to the proper standards? Are they properly restrained? Are they being overused or even underused, which I doubt? But those are the questions to me. But just to throw out the baby with the bathwater when there's such an element of law enforcement. Again, I go back to, what if Mr. Bradley was running around an apartment complex with 38 bullets in a magazine and being a convicted felon? We would want to apprehend somebody like that. It was quite unfortunate that he was on the ground and the dog bit him. I question, the training and other things that we can look at. So I would not support us making a recommendation without, as Farine and Norb says, a lot more study into what's going on. Over.
Thank you, Bob. So I'll turn it over to Sheila. And it sounds to me like you don't have the votes, but I do think it's worth saying at our meeting, we at least had a motion on the floor to consider recommending it. It didn't pass, but more importantly, more than one of us think it should be gone. And honestly, you'll have to see what the rest of the community has to say, but you're not alone in your position, and neither are you, Colleen.
And there's still more options to that.
There's definitely a lot more
that
options,
can
but
be
let me
put in
call
place.
in Sheila, because I know
Maybe
she's
give
next.
beagles, they have good noses.
Oh, beagle.
So I just, it was 6 officers there with the dog. I just want to point that out, not 5.
I'm sorry, there were 5 that had action taken against them.
Right, and the
That's what I was
dog
referring
was suspended, and now he's back, even though they're all afraid to work with him. So the other thing is the city commission meeting, if it's delayed again, are we going to have our meeting anyway? We'll just meet here because they've stopped it twice. And, the manager's the only one who has purview over the police department, so the city commission may have opinion, but she's the one.
True, you're very true. The county does report to the city manager. However, the commission can vote to direct the city manager to do something. So it just means that they're not involved in the day-to-day. But I do think I think it's worth the conversation to see. I'm really interested to hear what the rest of the community has to say and how this meeting goes. I think it's going to be a good conversation. I'm sorry they had to reschedule it a couple times, but I'm selfishly glad because I would have ended up missing the most recent one anyway. All right, so we're going to table your motion since, or do you want, we can actually go to a vote, or do you want to withdraw your motion, colleague? You don't have the votes.
I'm not up on the.
All right, it's cool. We'll just consider it withdrawn, but I just, the point is you aren't alone. I mean, there's at least two of you who think that, and I think that's.
You didn't say your position.
I don't think this body should take that decision at this time. I'm not saying never. I'm just saying I don't know enough about it, and I don't think we get to decide anyway. All right, let's do that. We will plan to be at the meeting. I'll see if we can get it as a joint meeting and/or it'll be noticed in our meeting. The final thing is we've got holidays coming up. How do you guys want to do it in November, December? Are you interested in sort of an early December meeting?
Well, November, we're doing this one, right? By
Right,
going,
the
you mean
15th.
we're all going to that, right?
Yes,
don't
we would
mean
go to that. We would not meet here. We would
Okay.
go upstairs to that meeting. But we can get it
November.
noticed, and I'll see if we can get it officially, like, together, kind of thing.
So if that happens, that covers November. So.
That covers November, and more importantly, then we get into, all the others. There's like a lot going on. But perhaps if we want to meet do you want to try to meet in early December? Like the first week of December, like 6th, 7th? It's a Wednesday night, would that work? Or 14th?
I have a housing authority board meeting the first
Okay.
Wednesday.
All right.
And also Black on Black.
Oh, Black, here's a question. What do they have planned for December? Do we know yet?
She is looking at hosting a holiday dinner like she usually does at the end of the year at Rollins Elementary.
Perhaps we can
And
join
regular
with that.
coverage.
And then we can decide if we need to have a business meeting. But I would love to encourage people to attend that.
That'll get us out of the
And that'll get us a community connection, that we can do that. And then we can decide if we want to have a business meeting in December, if there's enough business to be had, and if not, we can defer. But I really like the idea of, I know Ms. Rosa would like support, so this would probably please her if we went to her with that. And then, Kali, you got a good excuse to miss, but we'll forgive you.
They'll probably be pork and vegetables.
Yes.
Except the floor manager here.
When did you say it's the 7th?
It is the first Wednesday of the month.
You're a troublemaker. I like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can listen to so many people getting arrested right before the holidays. It's really so
December
sad.
7th.
That they're
And
committing,
starts at
not just
5:30.
arrested, but that
Okay.
those.
Well, why don't, if you wouldn't mind reaching out to Ms.
People
Rose
stealing
and see if it's
cars.
okay if we could join her,
Okay.
and I would like that opportunity.
I was gonna say, if we do have a meeting, I would suggest that it be, if not that first week, but somewhere between the 12th and the 16th, because
Okay.
anything after that,
Yeah, we're getting into,
what's gonna start scattering and leaving town. And in December, my wife and I, on December 23rd, we're celebrating our 34th wedding
well, that is
anniversary.
the most important thing.
So,
My 66th
so,
birthday.
so I'll suggest no later than
Okay.
between the 12th and the 16th
All right,
of
well,
December.
let's plan tentatively if we need to have a business meeting the week of December 12th through 16th, but we will go to the November 15th meeting, and it'll be noticed, so we can discuss if we need to meet. And if not, we'll join Ms. Rosa, and we'll just start again with business meetings in January. It's hard during the holiday, it's hard during December. I feel like I end up with like 50 million things going. All right, is there any other council comment? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
As I always say, I wish we had a true police review board, civilian stuff.
I know you, I know.
Second.
That also is something you can
can
bring
second
up at the
the
next,
wait.
at the city meeting. That's perfect. All right, if there's no objections, we'll go ahead and adjourn.